Hello, and welcome to Lead, Learn, and Connect, where we explore the worlds of training and coaching. I'm your host, Alan Krieger, and on our show, we explore not just the how of helping others grow, but the behind-the-scenes work of building a successful business, overcoming challenges, and staying connected to what's really important. My guest today is Lindsey Schiel, a talented coach who focuses on helping women take control of their lives and achieve next-level success. Whether you're a new coach, a seasoned facilitator, or just curious about what it really takes to thrive in this space, this episode is for you. Let's get started. Welcome, Lindsey.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So let's start right in with what is the secret sauce for coaching success? What makes a coach successful?
I think the first thing is patience. I think that, to start a coaching business, you want to help people right away. And sometimes that's not always the case. So really staying consistent, being patient, reflecting on the reasons why you're wanting to do this with people and help people, those I think are the real secret sauce, because it can get a little lonely in this entrepreneur world, right? And so really just to make sure that you center each day, find that vision, and then staying consistent and being patient, then the clients will see what your value really is.
Okay, so what's your vision? What's your value? What's the focus you bring to your work each day?
So I really want to make the world a better place. So I'm doing that through the coaching of women leaders and really helping them get to their next level of success. I think it's so important from little kids to grown adults for us to realize that the way we present ourselves in the world and the things that we do and the words that we use have an impact on so many. And so I think that by working with one client at a time, they then have the ability to work with one more person at a time. And really it's really to make the world a better place.
Okay, make the world a better place, but working through women leaders primarily.
Yeah, yes.
And what are some of the challenges that they face, and how have you kind of helped them?
Women leadership is interesting, and I laugh a little because so many of the women leaders I work with are like, "Well, I work in a male-dominated industry," and so I always respond back, "Which one isn't at this point still in today's world, right?" So women obviously are newer-ish to the workforce, right? So like we look at history, we see that it's in recent times that we're really trying to kind of make this movement of like making sure we have women in leadership roles. But I think, again, what is so important is for me to help women realize that even if I'm not in a role that I have a title that I'm a leader, I have a way in my workday, in my community, in my home to be a leader and to make an impact and to make change and to affect those around me. So some of the things I work with women is toxic workplaces. Sadly, that's not an uncommon thing. Balancing work and life. I do say that work-life balance is a myth. It's not a real thing. So it's really identifying what season are you in? What are your priorities? We look at, if I have women that aspire to be in higher roles to get to that, maybe that director, that CEO, that vice president role, we work through what are the ways that you can show up differently? How do you brand yourself? So really it's all encompassing in that we have challenges, we face different challenges. Maybe we're raising a family, maybe we're not. Maybe we're, in a role that people don't really see as a woman-led role. So it's really working individually with those women to say, like, how do we be our best selves? How do we reach that next level of success?
And is being your best self the best way to be a leader? Sometimes you have to be strategic.
For sure. So I think that when I say be your best self, it's really being authentic. It's really knowing who you and your values are so that when you're in a situation, you respond in a way that you're happy with, right? So I know that we get ourselves into situations and sometimes we don't always agree with it or we don't, want to do something. But as long as we're making decisions based on our values, we know that the decision that we made was the best to our ability. And so that's really, another focus point is that authentism, being authentic in situations. So that's what I mean by being your best self.
Okay. And something you said earlier, work-life balance is a myth. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So, as a mother of four, and I had a almost 19-year career in utility, it was very much we offer the work-life balance, and I was very blessed. I did have flexibility. I did have the ability to, volunteer at my kids' schools occasionally and show up for different things. But I do also see where by taking advantage of that, it did probably hold me back in ways, right? But I was able to deliberately make those decisions and those choices. And I wanted in that season to really be there for my family, while I still was able to get promoted, get raises, increase my span of control. Had I made different decisions, I might have even done that more quickly. But again, my priority at that time was being a mother, but still being a good leader to my teams. But there was really no way I could do both as good as I really thought I wanted to at, different points.
Okay, so there is an effort at balance, but you never hit that magical perfect
Exactly,
balance.
exactly.
Okay.
I like to call it seasons, right? So it's, maybe my season right now is I really am looking for that next promotion, but maybe it's, I just had a baby. And so like, I'm going to kind of just coast for a little bit. So the balance, I think, is the myth. It's just kind of what is my priority at the moment.
Okay. And so it sounds like you've had a lot of experience as a leader in corporations, and then you made the leap to working independently. What helped you change or made you want to move into coaching independently?
So I got to the point where I had done good work. I had done well for my teams that I led, for the employees that I led, but it was still something like, is this all there is to my life? Like what really do I want to be when I grow up? I tease a little, right? I had almost 20 years in a career, but it's like there's got to be something more. So I just had this internal kind of like nag of I really like what I do. I like the company I work for, but like I just think that there's more for me to give in a different way. And so that's really where I started to have the conversation with my husband and others and really started to learn about the opportunities with coaching. And for me, it was more I can reach people differently on a bigger scale. So again, I'm confident I left a lasting image on the people that I worked with in the corporate environment, but it was more how do I reach different people differently than I can in this role?
Okay, and was there some defining moment in your career, your life that kind of helped you make this change or change the way you coach?
Yeah, so I think it more started with, I had a bad leader and, we all have good leaders and we all have bad leaders. And I had a bad leader at a really like precious time in my life that it, it really impacted me as an individual and then impacted how I then wanted to treat others. So it really helped the situation really helped to form how I wanted to show up every day for my teams. And so that is how I then led and how I was able to grow in my career, to help others grow in their careers. And so I really like look back as was a defining moment that I started to learn the skills that I knew that you can't necessarily treat people how you want to be treated. People need to be treated how they need to be treated, but we all have to have kind of that end mission or vision, right? And so that was my defining point where I was like, I know that this is not the way I ever want to be perceived. And so I've made lots of decisions based on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of my mantras is that you need to treat people the way they want to be treated. Challenge is how do you figure out
Right.
how they want to be treated?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? And it's so funny you say that. I was on a call with a client today who's struggling with a leader, and it's interesting because people are unique and different, and so it's sometimes very much like a trial and error, right? So I know what I need from you. So if the first try I don't succeed, maybe I have to come in from a different perspective. And I think that's what's so exciting about coaching is that coaches can kind of bring that different perspective, almost a neutral perspective in a lot of situations, right? We want our clients to be successful, but it's a have you considered this? Or, what are the ways you've approached it that hasn't worked? So we need to kind of think outside of the box. So that's really how I help to guide my clients into how do we figure out what's going to be the best for both parties, right? Again, I know what I need. It's going to be my challenge to figure out how to get it from you.
Okay, great. And how much, I've talked to a number of coaches, what's the balance between asking questions and drawing it out from the client and giving them a framework or some tools or some knowledge?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I think that as a solutioner like I am, it's sometimes very difficult because I'm like, oh, I know the answer, or I can give you this advice, but I want to always ensure that the client is coming up with their solutions, right? So to your point, a framework is helpful for us to understand, our values or define our values or to understand and define our limiting beliefs. So we can use framework to help us set up a foundation to start to be able to confidently make decisions and changes in our lives. So I focus more on the questioning. I'm not going to say never brainstorm with a client or, offer suggestions. With my experience as well as working with other clients, I have ideas and thoughts, but it's very much those initial conversations are trying to draw those answers out within, right? I think that we all have answers. It's just letting ourselves be open to those answers. And so that's what I think my main role is as a coach, is really helping you to identify those answers. And sometimes if you get stuck, like I said, we'll do some brainstorming, I'll give some suggestions, but it's really, I want the client to come up with the answer because then it's theirs and they're more willing to own it.
That makes sense. So you talked about one, maybe kind of an anti-mentor, somebody who inspired you to move in a new direction. Have you had mentors and guides along the way that you found especially helpful?
I think again, it kind of goes back to that, like, what season are you in, right? So, I can't say I've had, I had a mentor or a guide, in my 19 years in the utility industry that it was like that was my go-to person. And I think this is another thing that I think is so great about coaching is that, you can have a work mentor or you can have, a leader that kind of takes you under their wings, but that's often for a season where a coach really is able again to support you in different ways. So had I known, about coaching back in the day, like I would have been a resource I would have invested in for myself. But to your question, I had people along the way that did reinforce the positives that I was learning for myself and for my team. I think some of, those people were the ones that were more open to collaborative environments, to making sure people were being heard and felt valued. So those are the things that I really drew from those people in those seasons that I was in.
Okay. So what do you do to build your business? How do you get clients? What are the ways you do to
Yeah.
keep that pipeline full?
Yeah. So networking is a big thing. I do like majority of my marketing on Facebook and LinkedIn. I think that those are great platforms because again, I want to help people all across this country and all across the world, right? So that's a good way for me to meet people. And another great thing that I wasn't super comfortable with initially, but was excited about after I saw the results is my warm market, right? So I've got people from industry. I have relationships from, things like even that my, people I've met through my children, at different school events that I have something to offer. And, they can then see the value of that and are willing to help me make connections, willing to bring me into their workplace to consult on culture and leadership. So it's a couple of different paths that have helped me. So, that marketing, that kind of organic marketing outreach. And then, but again, my warm market has been super helpful for me as well.
Okay. Um, if you could give one piece of advice to someone starting out in coaching, what is like one essential takeaway that you haven't yet shared with us?
That the only thing I use this not only for others that are starting a business or doing coaching, but I use it often with my clients is, the only thing that we really have control over is the way that we respond to situations. And so it's so easy if you're starting a coaching business to get discouraged, to think I'm not getting the results that I was hoping in the time that I was hoping to. Or, we also, like I said earlier, like it can be a little bit lonely as an entrepreneur, right? Where we're not having some of that face to face like we did in the workplace. But you take from that, right? And so maybe it's like you go and you join a networking group or, something like that, but it's you having the ability to manage your response. And that's really all that we have control over. And then the rest is just this crazy ride we're on.
Okay. This is maybe a little bit out of left field, but I've been talking to a number of coaches and trainers, and you think of trainers in particular as being extroverts out there on the stage. And it turns out a lot of them are identifying as introverts. So I'm just curious where you put yourself on that spectrum.
I think it's so interesting. And I think we need to work on better defining introvert and extrovert. But I would say that I'm probably would lean more towards extrovert because, I'm excited when I go and do things. That doesn't mean that I'm also not excited to just stay home in my pajamas, right? But it's funny, my kids have teased me in the past. So they're like, your superpower is like you can talk to anybody. And so that's why I say I would lean a little more towards extrovert in that, like, it's not common for me to be uncomfortable in a situation. And I feel that no matter who you put me by at a table, I'm going to be that kid that's talking in class all the time, right? So I would say extrovert, but I still think we need to work on those definitions.
Yeah, you came across as an extrovert, which is why I was asking the question because I've been surprised how many have been identifying as introvert. And my first awareness of that was I had someone came in and did a training for my team and was very outgoing and animated. And then at the end, she shared, I'm really an introvert. It's like, how can you be an introvert? She goes, well, I get my
Yeah.
energy by being alone. So I know you guys
Yeah.
have a lot of questions. Ask them, but I need to get out of here and go be by
Yeah.
myself.
Isn't it
And
interesting?
and that's kind of how I define it. Introvert gets their energy by being alone. Extrovert gets their energy from engaging with people.
I
Um,
really like that. I really like that way of putting it, but I still think I would probably go lean towards extrovert.
yeah, no, I would say I picked that up, and that's the person who can sit at a table and start a conversation
Yep.
and gets energy from people and being with
Yeah.
people. Yep,
Yep.
yep. Oh,
Definitely.
great. All right. So what's exciting? What's coming up for you in the world of coaching? What do you see on the horizon that may be new and
Yeah.
different?
Yeah. I just think that there's just so many opportunities with online and the way that we can meet virtually. And for me personally, like I love one-on-one coaching because like I get so excited when my clients have those wins and we can share them and we can celebrate them. But I really find that there's value in, I mean, some people call them masterminds or, kind of like group coaching as well. And so for me personally, that's something I'm starting to look at for some of, the either individual contributors that are hoping to reach like a leadership role or early leaders where, a lot of people are put into roles because they're technically capable. They maybe don't have some of the skills that a strong leader has, and not every company or organization has the ability to help train people up. So I'm really hoping to start working with groups of people to start having those conversations. I think we can learn so much from each other, that those types of collaborative environments are really a positive. And I think coaches are, starting to look at the advantages for themselves as well.
So you call it group coaching. It sounds to me more like training, but I guess learn from each other is maybe
Sure.
more
Yeah.
collaborative.
Yeah, right. So I think that, there's a couple ways to look at it. And for me, I haven't completely defined it, but more just creating like a culture and a group setting where we can talk through current issues, see if there's any alignment on what people are seeing, and then bring best practices, right? Not to say there won't be a training component, because I think that, if there's like, we're continuously seeing this across X amount of industries, or, all of our new leaders are experiencing XYZ. Maybe we bring in an expert, or maybe we do read a book together, or put together some type of training to help through that. So I think that it's really just a different environment is what excites me, is that it is more that collaboration. Not that a coach and client don't have collaboration, but it's just different insight from multiple people.
It sounds great. So after you've done a few of these, let's get back together. We
I
can
like
hear
it.
hear how it went.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you, Lindsey. That's it for today's episode of Lead, Learn, and Connect. A huge thank you to Lindsey Schiel for sharing great insights into the world of coaching. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. You can find out more about Lindsey's work and additional resources in the show notes. And if you're ready to deepen your leadership, enhance your communication, or learn more about my work and the team model of communication, head over to our website or follow us on LinkedIn or other social media. Until next time, keep leading with intention, keep learning, and keep connecting. Thanks for listening.